Okay, today we're going to talk about planning a proof. Okay, when you plan a proof, today we're going to give you some hints and pointers as to how you could, prove and stuff like that. So, when they give you a proof, many times they give you a diagram, right? Or you have to draw a diagram to help you prove things, right? So when you draw a diagram, they tell you to be careful here. Who wants to read for us when you plan a proof, what you should do? Kenneth, can you read it for us?
When you draw a diagram, try to make it reasonably accurate, avoiding special cases that might mislead. For example, when a theorem refers to an angle both drawn as a right angle.
Yeah, so why do you think you should, if you have to draw an angle, why not draw a right angle? Obviously, because, anybody? Yeah.
It's not a right angle.
Okay, because it's not a right. Or if you may think, right, when you draw an angle, it may look like a right angle. Maybe you didn't mean it, but then when you go back to it, you may think that it's right angle and then sort of do something wrong. You know what I mean? So yeah, so it's sort of obvious. When you talk about an angle, don't just assume that it's a right angle, right? Does that make sense? Or when the lines intersect, don't assume that they intersect in a right angle. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a right angle. It's just you got to think about all the other cases. Okay. Also, who wants to read this for us before you write the steps into? Go ahead. How about David?
Before you write the steps into the column proof, you will need to plan your proof. Sometimes you will read the statement of a theorem and see immediately how to prove it. Other times you may need to try several approaches before you find a plan that works.
And I talked about this many times. You guys remember? It does, when you prove, and I talked about lots of proof that are in the book, the person that proved that, it didn't just come to them. They actually try many different ways, right? And figure out what the best way is, right, of proving that theorem. Just like solving an equation and so forth, right? There are many ways of doing it, and, some ways are a little bit easier than the other. And sometimes you don't see it right away, okay? All right, next. Who wants to read this for us? Yes, go ahead. Michelle?
If you don't see a method of proof immediately, try reasoning back from what you would like to prove. Okay, this conclusion will be true if blank is true. This in general will be true if blank is true.
Right.
Sometimes this procedure leads back to a given state. So you have found the method of proof.
What does this mean? Very good. Thank you. What do you think this means? Emily, any idea? What are they trying to say here? Okay. Okay. Actually, it doesn't mean anything really special. Actually, it's a sort of a good idea. Emily, have you ever done those mazes? When you were younger, what's easier to do? Those mazes, go backwards. Turns out same way for proof sometimes. You know how you have conclusions? Kind of try to go backwards and reason, and go back to the given statement. Because if you could do that, you could go the other way, and that's basically what they're saying here. Does that make sense? Any question on that? Okay. All right. Then let's see what they say. Oh, lastly, let's see. This one is sort of a good one too. Who wants to read this for us here? Go ahead, Brandon.
Studying the proofs of previous theorems may suggest methods to try. For example, the proof of the theorem that vertical angles are congruent suggests the proof of the following theorem.
And so what this is saying is, anybody? Can somebody tell us? One person? What is he saying here? Yeah. How about Katie?
If you're trying to write a proof, looking at proofs for other theorems can help you.
Yeah, it could help. Yeah, it could help sort of looking at other proofs, right, that we proved or in the book, right? Sort of looking at their style. You could kind of see that sometimes it will be very similar. Does that make sense? Okay. So they said this next theorem that we're going to study today will be similar to the one that we did before. Let's see if we could recognize if it is similar or not. Okay, so let's go. Here we go. So here's our first theorem, and go ahead and write this down. It says if two angles are supplements of congruent angles, you could actually read it this way. If two angles are supplement of congruent angles, don't worry about the one in the parentheses, then the two angles are congruent. Or you could read this as if two angles are supplement of the same angle, then the two angles are congruent. So it actually means for two of these cases, but it turns out it's really, really similar. So that's why they put it together. If they wanted to, they could have actually made it into two different two theorems, but they put it together because it's really, really, really similar. So first theorem, you could read it, like I said, you could read it this way. If two angles are, just hide this part, oops. If two angles are supplement of congruent angles, then the two angles are congruent. So it actually means for two of these cases, but it turns out it's really, really similar. So that's why they put it together. If they wanted to, they could have actually made it into two different two theorems, but they put it together because it's really, really, really similar. So first theorem, you could read it, like I said, you could read it this way. If two angles are, just hide this part, oops. If two angles are supplement of the congruent angles, then the two angles are congruent. Okay? Or you could read it as if two angles are supplement of the same angle, then the two angles are congruent. And write this down and see if you can figure out what this theorem is saying. Because it may not, at first, it may not seem so obvious. A lot of you actually, that's good. Now, let me see if this helps. Okay, many times when they give you a theorem, they actually give you what's given. There are three things that's given and what you have to prove, and they give you a, oops, there you go. They give you a picture. Now, does this help? Understand? By the way, this is the case without the one with the parentheses. So this is when two angles are supplement of the congruent angles. They haven't given us the picture of if two angles are supplement of the same angle. Okay, but anyway, this is one that's not in the parentheses. So does this make sense? Does this help? Is this what you're thinking of? Take a look at it. See if that helps you to understand. Because many times, these are really good. When trying to understand these terms, they give you these, what's given, what's to prove, and give you the pictures. Okay, see if that helps you. Go ahead. Okay. Now that we have some time to sort of look at it, and can somebody explain to us what this theorem is talking about? It seems sort of confusing a bit, but it turns out it's really saying something really obvious. Okay, one person knows? 2? 3? Hannah, go ahead and try. What do you think? So you could actually, look at the picture and you could explain in terms of the picture.
If they have the same supplement, then
Okay. First of all, Hannah, when they say if two angles are supplements of congruent angles, which two angles are we talking about? From 1, 2, 3, 4, which two angles are they? When they say if two angles are supplements, which two angles? 1 and 3 are correct. These are the two angles they're talking about. You see how angle 1 is supplement to angle 2 and angle 3 is supplement to angle 4? Aren't these two angles, 1 and 3, supplement to the two congruent angles? Right? That's what we have, right? So then what can you conclude if that's true? Conclusion is, of course, obvious, right? What do you think, Jonathan? Yeah, the two angles are congruent, 1 and 3. Right? Does that make sense? For example, look, if angle 2 is 60 degrees, what's angle 4? 60 degrees. What's angle 1 since they're supplement? This is 120. What's angle 3? 120. 1 and 3 are congruent. That's all he's saying. Nothing hard. Does that make sense? What about then this one, the one in the parentheses? If two angles are supplements of the same angle, then the two angles are congruent. What does that mean? That case, Jocelyn?
so like if you have an angle and like you can draw basically two different like straight lines. Basically like if you have one angle, you can make two different supplements. Those supplements are the same.
Right. Basically, if I just did this. In other words, I hide that angle 4. And basically, Jocelyn, what are they saying then? In the one in the parentheses, they're saying 1 is supplement to. The angle 1 is supplement to angle 2, and if angle 3 is also supplement to angle 2, the same angle. Does that make sense? Look, if two angles, we're still talking about those two angles, 1 and 3. Because look, if two angles are supplement of the same angle, these angles 1 and 3 are supplement of the same angle 2, right? Therefore then, angle 1 and 3 must be congruent. Again, if angle 2 is 60 degrees, what's angle 1? Because they're supplement of each other. Angle 1 is? Hello? 120 degrees. And since angle 2 and 3 are also supplement, what's angle 3? 120, what's angle 1 and 3? They are congruent. Does that make sense? That's all they're saying, something simple. You understand? Do you see why there's sort of two cases, but you can kind of put them together? Yeah, you could talk about two angles that have the same measurement, or you could just talk about that same angle. They're supplement of those two. Does this make sense? Yes? All right. Guess what we're going to do with this then? Prove. Okay, let's prove this case where the one without the parentheses. Okay, is that okay? Because you could do the one with parentheses really easily. It's very similar. So look at what's given to you. You got angle 1 congruent to angle 2. By the way, in order for this to be true, how many things must be true? In order for 1 and 3 to be congruent, you have to have how many things? Show me with your fingers. How many things do we have to have? 3 things are correct. Some of you don't have your hand up. What are those 3 things? First, you have to have what, guys? Angle 1 and 2 supplementary, also 3 and 4 supplementary, and is that all? And 2 and 4 has to be congruent. Then you could say 1 and 3 are congruent. Does that make sense? Okay, so this term has to make sense to you, right? It is very, okay, it does make sense. So let's prove this one, okay? So here we go. I'll be nice and give you the first step. Given, okay? Yeah. Then, anybody know or see what to do next? So I know that angle 1 and 2 are supplementary, and 3 and 4 are supplementary. What can we say? What should we do next from here? Okay, you all writing down? Wait, okay. As you write this down, think about what should come next. Okay, 2 people? Oh, people still writing? Let me wait. I'll wait. Okay, go ahead. Write it down. Who thinks they know what to write next? Any idea? Not quite sure. Oh, still. Now we'll back to. Oh, 2 people. 3. Oh, okay, 4. A little more. How about Leo? What do you think, sir? Angle 1 plus angle 2. Measure of angle 1 plus angle 2 equals to? Angle 3 and angle 4? Why do you say that? Angle 2 and angle what? Angle 2 and angle 4 are congruent? Well, just because 2 and 4 are congruent doesn't necessarily mean 1 plus 2 equals to 3 plus 4, does it? That's what we're trying to prove. Right? Isn't that what we're trying to prove? Ethan, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say angle 1, measure of angle 1, measure of angle 2, measure of angle 3, measure of angle 4 equals 180.
Good. Doesn't that kind of come naturally? If angle 1 and 2 are supplementary and 3 and 4 are supplementary, what can you tell me about sum of those 2 angles? They have to equal to 180, like Ethan says. And what is the reason why we could say this? Yes, sir.
Substitution.
Substitution is not correct. It would not be because of substitution. It's because of, anybody see that? Yes, only one person? Hannah is the only one? Oh, 2, 3, 4. Irene, what do you think? How many people agree that what Irene said? Definition of supplementary angle? Good. This is because of definition of supplementary angles. You guys remember this? Right? Now, Nico, what should we do next? This is a very good sort of step, because after this, we could get to our 3rd step using what we just said here. Not so sure? Okay, if measurement of angle 1 plus 2 is 180 and 3 and 4 equals to 180, Nico, what can you say about these angle measure? 1, 2, 3, 4. Do they have some sort of relationship? They're same. What do you mean they're same? What is same as what? In other words, could we come up with some sort of equation using these 2 facts here?
And the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 4.
Exactly. And what is the reason why you could do that? What would be the reason behind it? Angle adjacent posture? No, angle adjacent posture says if you add 2 angles together, you get the whole thing. That's not the reason. Well, what allows you to say that, Nico? It's not because of angle adjacent postulate, is it? Because angle substitution, you're basically saying because they both equal to 180, right? In place of 180 down here, or in place of 180 up here, I'm going to put down 3 plus measure angle 4. Now, how does this help us to show that angle 1 and 3 are congruent? I want you to all think about this now. Go ahead. As a group, what do we do next? Go ahead, guys. What do we do? So, anybody see what to do next? How many people from here wrote down then, oh, angle angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 by subtraction property of equality. Raise your hand. No one? Can I just go to what I wanted to prove? So as a fourth step, can I say, angle 1, measurement angle 1 is equal to measurement angle 3, which is the same as angle 1 congruent to angle 3? Can we go straight to that? Oh, no?
You have to do
Yeah, what is a nice, Hannah, what do you think? Angle 2 is congruent to angle 4 is necessary here, isn't that right? Because you can't just subtract 2 and 4. In our head, right? We know they are congruent because why? It was given. But do you think we still have to say it? Yeah, you do. Okay, so please don't forget to say the things that are most obvious. That's why people, leave out sometimes, okay? Because it's so obvious that we know in our head, we forget to say it in the proof. And of course, now, are we ready to then subtract both sides by 3 and 4? Yeah, and then we're done. And again, for these step 4 and 5, they should have broken them down to 2 steps and because of, right? They went from congruence to equal, right? So they should use, if you were doing this on a test, you should have put this down as step 4. Step 5 should be measure angle 2 equal to measure angle 4 because of what? Definition of congruence. And here again, from here to here, measure angle 1 equal to measure angle 3. You could say they're congruent by, again, definition of congruence. Okay, please add that in there if you were taking a test or you're doing your homework. The book sort of puts them together. I kind of like it separate. Yeah, question?
If we were to write that measurement of angle 2 is congruent, it's equal to measurement of angle 4 at
Right.
the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
do we have to restate that?
Yeah, so a lot of you say, well, why don't we just put this given in the very beginning, right? List all those 3 things in the very beginning. But as you can see, if you do that, then as a reader of this proof, it's sort of hard to follow. As it is, remember, we're using deductive reasoning. We want them in what we want in what sort of order? Logical, right? Order, right? So you see how it really makes sense to put that given part right here, because that's when you'll be subtracting those. Does that make sense? Because if you were to put all givens in the very beginning, then you don't know which given you're using to then go to the next statement and so forth. So this actually helps us to follow the logic a lot better. Yes? Okay. Would you agree? Okay. Any question? Does that make sense? Do you think you could do something like this for your homework tonight?
Yeah.
Good, because you're going to have something like this. Because this theorem is, like I said, look, it says this is going to be for number 18 for your homework. Okay, so what is this theorem saying? Well, actually, it's very similar to the one we just did. Can somebody guess what we're going to do? We had that theorem for supplementary angles. Guess what? We could also have the same situation for complementary. That's exactly what this is, guys. Watch this. If 2 angles are complements of the congruent angles or the same angle, then what? Then the 2 angles gotta be congruent. So it's exactly the same theorem, except now for supplementary angles, supplement of the angles, these are the complements of the angles, okay? Congruent angles. Go ahead, write that down. And does this make sense? Yes? Okay, now it's a lot easier, right? Now that we talked about that previous theorem. So you may use these 2 theorems for your homework tonight, unless I ask you to prove one of them. You know what I mean? Okay, so go ahead and write it down. Okay, then you will prove that for your homework, sort of looking back to that. Take a look at this example. Then this one, I would like you to then prove this as a group. Okay, help each other out here. Given, so you have this diagram. Given angle 2 and 3 are supplementary. Can you prove that angle 1 and 3 are congruent? By the way, do you think the theorem that we just talked about may be helpful?
Yeah.
Maybe, probably. Okay. So, like I said, when you're doing your homework, think about those theorems that we proved in class or talk about in class, because those are going to be really helpful. Otherwise, you end up proving those theorems as you prove. Anyway, so go ahead and think about this one. And does this make sense, by the way? As you draw, think about it. Does this work? I'll give you time. Go ahead, guys. And again, help each other out. Work as a group. Okay, go ahead. By the way, let's talk about this before we actually prove this. Yeah? Hannah, did you have questions? Oh, okay. Guys, I'll give you a little more time, but let me ask you this. If you could actually explain why angle 1 and 3 are congruent by sort of explaining it, right? I think it's really helpful to actually to prove it. Can somebody explain why 2 and 3 should be congruent? Hannah, go ahead.
2 and 3.
Yeah. I mean, not 2 and 3, sorry. 1 and 3. 2 and 3, yeah, of course. Yeah, 2 and 3. right?
And 1 and 2 equals 180.
Yeah, look, 2 and 3, don't they add up to 180? Don't they?
Yeah.
And 1 and 2, just like Hannah says, of course will add up to 180. So,
Oh.
because that, yeah, basically, look, let me ask you this, guys. Let's say that angle 2 is 60 degrees. Okay, so just do an example. Okay, even though it's just for one angle, particular angle, that's okay. Maybe it doesn't prove for everything, it sort of explains. If angle 2 is 60 degrees, what is measurement of angle 3? 120, right? Because why? They are? What about angle 1? 120 because why? They're supplementary. So isn't angle 1 and 3 then both 120? So therefore they're congruent. Right? Now how would you actually do that as a proof then? That's the idea. By the way, what does that sound like? Does that sound like some of the things that we talked about today? What does that sound like? Yes. One person knows? Hannah's like the only one that's answering. Is everyone else here? Yeah, Kenneth. Yeah, which is? You can't just write theorem 2.7 because you won't get any credit.
Two angles
Uh-huh.
are supplements of congruent angles. Then the two angles are congruent.
Are these, should I write it as if two angles are supplement of the congruent angles? No. Since we're talking about the other case, yeah, you want to say, I want you to say it differently this way. If two angles are a supplement of the what? Same angles. This is the case for same angles, isn't that right? What is that same angle here? Angle? Angle? Show me with your fingers. Angle what? There are 4 of them. Which angles? What are the which one is the same angle we're talking about here? Angle? I want 100% participation. So we could use that theorem if two angles are supplement of the same angle, then the angles are congruent. Okay. Which one of these angles are the same angle we're talking about here? Angle? Show me with your finger. I don't see it. Okay, hello? It is 2. Look. Isn't 2. Look at angle 3. Isn't 3 supplement of angle 2?
Yes.
Yes? Isn't 1 and 2, aren't they supplementary to each other?
Yes.
So there, 2 is supplement of angle 1, 2 is supplement of angle 3. That's the same angle we're talking about. Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the test, if
Yeah.
you have to write the whole theorem out, you word it differently.
Yes, you do. Very good question. So on the test, when you write out the theorem, do you need to write it as with the parentheses?
No, but I'm asking, you have to write word for word.
Yes. Because if you don't, it may not mean exactly what it's saying. So, but I don't want you to write that twice. I want you to write it this way. If two angles are complement of what? The same angle. Do you need to add that part where congruent angles? No, you don't. Okay. Does that make sense? So I want you to write it as if two angles are supplement of the same angle, then the angles are congruent. So let's go ahead and prove this. Okay, I'll give you more time. Go ahead and finish it up. Okay. Here we go. I'll do the first one for you and the last one for you. Okay, the first one is this. Angle 2 and 3 are supplement. Okay? Supplementary. That's given, of course. Now, let's go back to that theorem that we studied. Look at this theorem, right? It says if two angles, by the way, we're not using this part right here, right? We're using if two angles are supplements of the same angle, right? So like I said, you don't have to use that one. Then the two angles are congruent. How many parts in given do we have? How many parts do we have in here? In other words, in order to use this theorem, how many things must be true to begin with? 3 things. That angle 1 and 2 are congruent and supplementary. 3 and 4 are supplementary. And in this case, well, since we're talking about same angles, that same angle is congruent to itself. That's obvious. Does that make sense? Then you could say angle 1 and 3 are congruent. Does that make sense? So guess what? In order to do this, do you think we have to show all those 3 parts that are true?
Yes.
Yes, you do. If you want to use that theorem. So that's given. Anybody know what to do next? This is a part. Okay. That. Okay. How about Michelle? Angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. This is a part where that's what a lot of people will write. But have I told you that angle 1 and 2 are supplementary at all? Because if you write that, what do you have to use? Definition of supplementary angles. And I haven't told you they're supplementary. Anybody know what to do before? Because this is a step that people miss many times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How about Narek? What do you think, sir?
Measure angle 2 plus measure angle 3.
Measure angle 2 plus? Oh, 2 plus 3 is 180? Yeah, you could say that, but that doesn't really help us too much. We know because we already know they're supplementary. So it has already satisfied one of our statement that we have to. If I want to use that theorem, we got that first part right. Actually, that's not what we want to say. In order to say that 1 and 2 are supplementary, what do you need to say first? One person? Hannah's on a roll today. Okay, Hannah, go ahead. What do you think? If I want to say angle 1 and 2 are supplementary, you can't go straight to that statement yet. What do you have to say first? Angle 2 plus? No, we just said that. No, that's not. Yeah? Angle 1 plus angle 2 is? 180 is correct. Okay? We need to say that first, right? Then we could say they're supplementary. Correct? So Hannah Lee, what's the reason why we could say this? Angle 1 plus 1 angle 2 is 1. That's sort of obvious, but definition of supplementary angles? Not quite. We can't use that because I haven't told you that 1 and 2 are supplementary yet. That's what we're trying to say. Okay, in order to say that they're supplementary, we have to know that their sum is 180. Then we could say they're supplementary. And it's not because of definition of supplementary on the second step because we don't know that they're supplementary yet. I mean, it's obvious that they are, but how do we say this in a proof? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How about Joshua? Angle addition postulate, which part? Second part. Please, guys, you need to know this part. When,
We have to say second part.
yeah. No, you don't have to, I guess. But know that it's from the second part. You know what I mean? You can just write angulation postulate. And many times people think that only works for, angles that are not 180. But 1 for 180, that's the second part. You guys remember that? Now, what can we say, Hannah Lee? What can we say here? So after saying measurement angle 1 plus angle 2 is 180, what can you tell me about angle 1 and 2? That they are supplementary because of what? Because of what, class? Brandon? Definition of supplementary angle. Right. Oh, try to hide the answer. Does that make sense? Madison?
Wait, why do we have to write that they're supplementary angles if we can just do the substitution?
Can we use substitution for?
I mean, yeah.
How are you going to substitute?
Well, what I
Well,
did before,
mhm.
like, angle 1 and angle 2 equal 180. I did angle 2, measurement at angle 2 plus measurement at angle 3 equals 180. Using the method of supplementary angles.
Oh, that's what you want to do next?
Well, no, I did that before that, but you can't.
Why would you? Oh, you could do all that way. Okay, so this isn't the only way to do it, but if you do it that way, then it turns out you'll be actually proving the theorem that we want to use. So you could do it that way, but before you do that, you have to have, because you will see in a minute that this will be a little bit shorter, because if you say angle 1 plus angle 2 is 180, and then 2 plus 3 are 180, and then put them together and subtract, the same angles from both sides, you could do it that way, okay? But then you won't be using the theorem. You'll be actually proving the theorem, right? So it's okay. It's not wrong, but let's use the theorem then. Is that okay? So we have two things, right, that satisfies that theorem. We need the one last thing here. Not only are 2 and 3 supplement, 1 and 2 are supplement, what do we need? Next. Yes, sir. 2 is congruent to 2. That's the third thing that we need. And guess what? As the last one, if 2 and 3 are supplement of each other and 1 and 2 are supplementary, and 2 is congruent to 2, in other words, here, we got two angles that are what? Supplements of the same angle. Guess what? What's our conclusion? Angle 1 and 3 are congruent because if two angles are what? If two angles are supplement of the same angle. See, we have satisfied all these things. We have two angles that are supplement of the same angle. See, 1, 2, 3. then the two angles are congruent. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yeah.
Do you get how this works here? Okay, if I was being careful, I would have said angle 1 and 3 are congruent, right? Then what? Then what, guys? As a sixth step, you will write what? Yeah. Yeah, measure of angle 1 is equal to measure of angle 3 by what? Definition of congruence. Okay, so if I was being careful, that's what I wanted you to do anyway. So, any question?
If we don't put down,
Just do it. All right, so Madison, you could actually do it obviously a different way. Like you said, just like how we proved that theorem, you could actually do it that way. It'll still work. But I just wanted to show you how I use this theorem. Is that okay? But yes, you could actually do it a different way. Just like how you solve equations. There are many different ways. Are we good? Okay. Good.